Welcome to the Amakitia Duos Play Pretty series, episode 3, Embouchure Basics Continued. My name is Diane Barger, and I am professor of clarinet at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
And I'm Denise Gainey, professor of clarinet at the University of Alabama at Birmingham.
And together we are the Amakitia Duo.
In Series 2, we discussed our various approaches to teaching the initial formation of the clarinet embouchure. In this video, we want to further explain some tips for practicing the clarinet embouchure, and we want to discuss the importance of tongue position in the mouth while playing the clarinet. There is an excellent YouTube video on voicing, or the shape of the oral cavity as we play an instrument, by Michael Lowenstern called Yes, You Can Play High Notes on Bass Clarinet Easily-ish. His discussion is for bass and soprano clarinets and uses several very clear playing examples. We're going to post those in the comments section of our Facebook page, so check us out there. So voicing tongue position is crucial in producing a good tone quality on the clarinet, and it's difficult to teach as we can't see inside the oral cavity as we play. Most middle school and high school clarinet players grow up hearing their band directors use la and da, or low tongue placement, when discussing tone production. If we do that on clarinet, we end up with a spread, unpleasing tone, especially as we ascend into the upper register of the instrument. And voicing changes in the different registers of the clarinet. I teach my students to think of three main tongue positions: ha, he, hu. So ha, the tongue is relaxed in the bottom of the mouth. He, the tongue is arched, the back of the tongue is raised, and you should be able to feel the inside of the back molars with the fat part of the back of your tongue. The tip is forward. And hu, trickiest one yet, which makes a huge difference in the altissimo. We have a scoop in the tongue, like a U shape, while still staying arched. So there's no exact place where I can tell you where these voicing changes for each register. In the lowest register, or the shallow, I think of ha from low E until approximately C below the staff. From that point until approximately G at the top of the staff, ha becomes he, ha, he. And around that G or A in that clarion register just above the staff, he becomes hu. And why is this important? It impacts the size of the oral cavity and thus the airspeed. And the speed of the air is crucial in the vibration of the reed and the production of a characteristic tone. There are several methods for practicing voicing, and one of my favorites is to use register slurs. So for example, if I finger, my clarinet's not all together here because we're using it as another prop in a moment, but if I finger a low A, for example, and that's the shallow, I add the register key. It becomes an E in the clarion register. And when I go to take the first finger away, it becomes a high C sharp. And so as I have my students begin to do that, I like to start by having them say the voicing syllables, ha, he, hu, and then sing those voicing syllables, hopefully with the correct pitches. So they're practicing that muscle memory where each of those register notes live in our oral cavity.
That's awesome. And I'm sure we'll refer back to voicing in future videos. But I'm going to talk a little bit more just about the embouchure basics again and how you can have your students practice. And I actually like to just have them use their finger to practice correct embouchure formation. And in part A of this exercise, again, I just asked the student to use their index finger as if it's the mouthpiece reed wedge when first trying to form the embouchure. And the finger allows the player to receive that sensory message, unlike the clarinet mouthpiece reed wedge can offer them, because we can feel what's going on when the finger's in our mouth. This, we just have to rely on what it sounds like, okay? So the top teeth should gently touch the base of the fingernail when they're using the index finger as the mouthpiece reed wedge. If the student feels a bit of pain already, then they are biting. And again, that finger will give that sensory message of the jaw is closing and clamping down. You could ask the student to actually gently adjust the jaw from that more open, stable embouchure formation that we talked about in series 2, the clarinet embouchure basics video, to that of clamping down a bit more so they feel the difference that makes and how they will feel more pain when clamping down too much. Okay, so you can even try this with me. Again, you're gonna open up here, insert that finger, top teeth, or gently resting on the base of the nail, and then just try to adjust the jaw. Ow. As soon as I put too much pressure and clench the jaw, my finger says, no, stop. Okay. So this can really help demonstrate how important it is to have that fixed, stable jaw opening against the mouthpiece reed wedge when playing, as that will equate to dampening the vibration of the reed due to excessive jaw pressure. I also like to mention to students that the feeling of the lower lip should just be more of a pressing across into the finger rather than up. When the contact is more across, the jaw will remain open. When the contact is up, the jaw closes and tightens up against the finger. And again, you can really feel this with the index finger, those two different approaches. In part B of this exercise, the student then moves from the index finger to the actual mouthpiece reed wedge with the barrel, so there's something to hold on to. And now is the time to make sure the student understands how much reed there should be in the mouth. As many of you know, too often, students have so little mouthpiece and reed in the mouth when they try to play, and it just increases the biting issues and negatively affects overall sound production. Denise is actually going to demonstrate here. You can simply place a piece of paper between the mouthpiece and reed to see where it falls down. And you can see Denise is doing this in the video. Okay, and you can either, like she had said in our first embouchure series 2 video, that you can put a marking on the reed there with a pencil, so the student knows where that is. And I think it usually is very surprising how much reed is actually away from the table of the mouthpiece. And if the lower lip of the embouchure goes above that spot, you will be dampening the maximum vibration of the reed and will be more prone to biting and clamping down with your jaw. All things that make playing the clarinet more difficult. And as I like to tell my students, life is hard enough, clarinet shouldn't be. So the most important aspect of clarinet embouchure, in my opinion, is to set the embouchure before the clarinet comes anywhere near your mouth. Okay? And I can easily demonstrate this with pretending this is my mouthpiece reed wedge and here's my embouchure. Okay, so if I basically just insert the mouthpiece and then do this with my embouchure, I am more likely to clamp down and bite. Whereas if I have a fixed embouchure, fixed stable opening that I just insert that reed wedge into, voila. Okay. Remember, the instrument is basically just an extension of your overall sound production, but its foundation begins with the embouchure formation and your unique oral cavity. So here it is again, step by step. Set the jaw to an open position. Spread lower lip across the front of the lower teeth, which allows for a bit of cushion over the lower teeth and helps engage the lower facial muscles to point the chin. Upper lip and sides of mouth muscles going forward and down. Tongue pulled slightly back and raised in the he or hue position where back sides of tongue are lightly grazing the upper back molars, and middle to tip of tongue engaged and suspended in the middle of the mouth. Insert mouthpiece reed wedge barrel combination into that fixed stable opening. Top teeth gently touch the top of the mouthpiece, and the upper lip curls slightly down so the red part of the lip touches the top, not the inside wet part, and then presses down against the mouthpiece. And what I mean by this, and I think this is where a lot of people miss the boat, or some people just don't talk about upper lip very much, but you'll see a lot of students just place that upper lip. And what I mean by the wet part is I'm almost pooching my mouth forward, okay, as opposed to being a little bit more. Again, I had said before that I feel like this is my entire triangle embouchure, okay, and these muscles of the upper lip, my upper lip almost curls a little bit underneath itself, so I get as much of the red part of the lip pressing down onto the mouthpiece. Okay, that allows me really good flexibility and great cushion. Then you breathe through the corners of the mouth while remaining in contact with the upper lip on top of the mouthpiece and lower lip against the reed. Again, you could practice this with just a finger. And sometimes I have my students talk to me. Hi, Dr. Barger, how are you? So they understand that this all, yeah, go ahead, Denise. This remains in contact, okay? This doesn't move, but this does, and that allows us to easily breathe and quickly form the seal. As you start to produce the air back into the mouthpiece reed wedge, corners of mouth go forward to create the seal. Voila.
Yay, wonderful. In addition to what Diane said, here are some approaches and things I like to talk about when helping students learn correct embouchure formation and amount of mouthpiece. So as the placement of the bottom lip on the reed is so important, I give students multiple methods of finding that sweet spot for them on their mouthpiece. We talked about putting the paper behind the reed, that's one, marking it with their thumb, placing the mouthpiece. They can also hold the reed and mouthpiece with barrel up toward the light to the side, and they can see where the light begins to come behind between the reed and the mouthpiece. That place is the place where we want our bottom lip to be as well. So we want to look for those exact places to have the most reed vibrating as possible. They can also find the squeak. It's easy for beginners to do as well. I know it's not a very pretty sound, but it works. It gives them the idea of how much mouthpiece they actually need to take. So on clarinet, if they're playing an open G, and I'll go ahead and assemble here for a moment. If they're playing that open G, they take too much mouthpiece in, sorry, they're going to get a squeak, right? So, lovely sounds.
I have goosebumps now.
I know. Sorry. The cat ran away. Where's Fritz? Okay. So with that G becomes, with an overblown, becomes a high D. And that lets them know if they get to that point, they've gone too far. So they want to back up just a little bit. So they're looking for the optimum amount of reed to vibrate to get their best sound, right? The space in the mouth is important too. So I use phrases like thinking a tall mouth to encourage students to keep the jaws unclenched. With beginners, I tell them to think of having Abraham Lincoln's hat sitting on their tongue. So they're thinking a lot of space there. The embouchure should always be set, as Diane discussed, so important before the mouthpiece is inserted into the oral cavity. Sometimes thinking of the embouchure as an inverted whistle helps students to easily grasp that concept of what it should look like and feel like. Many students put the mouthpiece in and attempt to start the sound while at the same time forming an embouchure. It's a recipe for disaster. That leads to biting and changes in the pressure against the reed, which greatly impact the tone quality and its tonal consistency.
So there are a few ideas that we hope help you, and I know we talked about in our previous embouchure series 2 video, I introduced just a little bit of the idea of the he-D approach of, having the air in motion, and then the tongue introduces the sound. And that's a Stanley Hasty concept. Years ago, he called it the ha-ta. I call it the he-D. We're going to talk about that in a future video, among other things. And if you ever have any ideas, please let us know for any topics. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, make sure to visit our Amaketia Duo website at theamaketiaduo.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
And if you wish to contact us about a future video subject that you'd like us to address, or would like to request a virtual masterclass with us via Zoom, please email us at theamaketiaduo@gmail.com. Play pretty.
Play pretty.